How's it going, and welcome back to another video. This here is the A7R II full frame camera with the Minolta 50mm f1.4 mounted on it. And this here is the A6500 APS-C camera with the Lens Turbo 2 speed booster and the exact same 50mm f1.4 mounted. And in this video we're going to pit these two up against each other, speed booster versus unadulterated full frame sensor. So before we get started, I've got just one disclaimer. I've had the speed booster for about 6 weeks now. I got the A7R II yesterday. So I have used the speed booster for quite some time, and I have been very impressed with the results that I've gotten so far when I was just using this camera. Since comparing these two side by side in this video, the A7R II really outshines it, and you guys are going to see that in a little bit. This is one of the cheapest speed boosters I could find. It's about $140, $150 on Amazon. Check the links in the description if you want to check it out. There are more expensive ones. The Metabone speed booster is a smart speed booster, so you get autofocus and stuff like that for Canon lenses, and it's $650. So that's almost half of what I paid for the A7R II. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to the comparison. All right, so right off the bat, there is the A6500 and the A7R II. You can see this in the upper left-hand corner of the pictures, and I'll do my best to keep them on the same sides you see them now. Next is the field of view. The Lens Turbo 2 is a 0.73 magnification. To get a full frame view, you need to go back to 0.66 magnification. The Metabones adapters are about 0.71, so you get a little bit wider, but still not quite the full frame. You can see this in the trees near the edges of the frame. This one here is entirely in the frame, and it is just barely there on the edge. And same with this tree right here. It's significantly closer to the edge than it is on the full frame image. So now for the actual image quality itself. This again is the Minolta 50mm f1.4. I shot this at f1.4, 2.8, 5.6, and f11. And those are designated by the stars, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's just jump right into the middle here. It's not an ultra sharp image at f1.4. There's a little bit of just general fuzziness and haziness going on throughout the entire image, but it's not too bad considering it is a $40 to $60 lens. Near the edges, it gets much cloudier and much softer. It's very poor on the edges when it's wide open. So let's go ahead and jump down to f5.6, and at f5.6 you can really see how much it has sharpened up on the A7R II image. It's still a little bit softer on the A6500 here with the speed booster, but it is definitely an improvement. Something to note is that there is a little bit of extra chromatic aberration on pretty much everything with the speed booster. If you look at the A7R II image here, there is almost no chromatic aberration at all on any of these branches here, but on the A6500 with the speed booster, there is a pretty significant amount. Now jumping down to f11 to see the sharpest that this lens gets, and the speed booster actually looks really good. I mean, especially in the center, there's very little chromatic aberration. It's very sharp. I mean, that looks almost every bit as sharp as the A7R II does over here. So the speed booster does a really good job in the center for the most part. The closer you move to the edges, the chromatic aberration pretty much hangs out the entire time through the entire aperture range. Again, keep in mind we are at 2:1 magnification here, so this is way zoomed in, more zoomed in than you'll pretty much ever be onto anything unless you're printing it really big. So most of the time it's going to be a non-issue. And just for verification, I shot this without the speed booster. So this is going to be the image without the speed booster over here on the left-hand side. So here we can see that without the speed booster on the A6500, there again is no chromatic aberration, and it is apparent on the one with the speed booster. So it doesn't have anything to do with the camera. It is in fact the speed booster introducing that into the image. And then just for kicks, this is the A7R II with the speed booster on it, and let's compare that. Yeah, that looks pretty similar. So on the A6500 without the speed booster, we're getting what is at 1:4 zoom on the A7R II with the speed booster. So this is closer to a medium format field of view, which is just absolutely massive here. You can see how much extra is actually in the frame. And again, with this, we've got chromatic aberrations. It's not too bad in the middle, but it definitely does rear its ugly head closer to the edges. And now for the depth of field in the bokeh, which is really what most people will be getting a speed booster for. You can see that it's very similar between these two images here as far as the amount of bokeh, but the speed booster seems to render it just a little bit softer and the lines aren't quite as harsh. On the A7R II, you can see that there's much more defined circles and it's almost more distracting. So this one I would almost give to the speed booster is having better bokeh. And there is one other problem that is introduced with the speed booster, and that is that the amount of dirt that can get on the speed booster, there's just more exposed lens elements when changing lenses, and it can interfere and kind of dirty up your bokeh balls. That's kind of a minor detail, but I figured I'd mention it. So as you can see, the speed booster gets us very close to a full frame shot, and I actually tried to frame up the shot the same way. So this is the A7R II no speed booster versus the A6500 no speed booster. I moved the camera back to try and get the framing the same, and you can see there's just a kind of different look to everything, mostly because it's not as wide of an angle and we're further away from the subject here. But you can see that the bokeh is much smaller, much harsher. The depth of field is much deeper as well. And then of course for kicks, I decided to put the speed booster on the A7R II, and I tried to get the framing to a similar place again. Now there is terrible vignetting, but aside from that, you can see that the bokeh in this is even more crazy and more bizarre looking. It's kind of got a neat effect. Some people may like that for kind of an artistic touch. So you can use this on the A7R II to get a little bit closer to a medium format field of view with these lenses. But overall, the speed booster seems to do the job it was intended for, and it does it fairly well. In this image here, there is no chromatic aberrations apparent, and the image is pretty much tack sharp. You can see details down to the dust sitting on the edge of the candle, and this is just incredibly sharp and very detailed, especially for being zoomed in this much. So the speed booster is definitely cool, especially for $150, giving you a whole new look on lenses that you may already own. So there you have it, and you can see that the speed booster pretty much introduces chromatic aberration at every single aperture. While it doesn't make the images unusable and it can easily be corrected after the fact, it still reduces the overall image quality and kind of softens the edges of everything. So it's not particularly ideal, but for $150, it does a very good job. I did say that I used this for 6 weeks before this video, and I was impressed with it. I did like the images I got from it. And to be honest, before this video, I didn't even notice the chromatic aberrations. So if you've got $150 to spend and you're looking to get full frame-like images, this is not a bad route to go at all. But you just can't quite beat the real thing. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a like. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.